Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Money9 News. I'm Kartik Malhotra. A recent tweet just a few minutes back, in fact, from ICMR on Twitter suggests that a study of theirs has revealed that the Covaxin is, in fact, even effective against the double mutant variant of the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. Should Covaxin now become the vaccine of choice against this virus of concern? Dr. Samiran Panda joins us today from ICMR. Dr. Panda, thank you so much for being here with us on Money9 again. Welcome back to Money9. Help us understand, what does your study reveal?
All right. So we are going through the second surge or second wave of SARS-CoV-2 in India, and many other countries globally are also experiencing the same phenomenon. And the rapidity with which the infection is spreading is of serious concern, because large number of people have been infected, and they are being infected at such a pace. That's a great concern from public health perspective, because the demand on the healthcare system is so huge, and it's escalating very rapidly. So it's actually an explosive spread of infection that we are witnessing now in India. So in that context, or against that background, this finding from the ICMR National Institute of Virology Laboratory is of great significance. I will explain why. The rapid spread that we are seeing has also been associated in some of the states with the new mutants. We are all aware of the UK variant and now the double mutant, which is being discussed or talked about. So what does a COVID vaccine do? COVID vaccines actually reduce the severity of the disease once an individual gets infected with the virus. So if the severity is reduced, what would happen? The necessity for going to the hospital for getting admitted, the requirement for oxygen, or the requirement for ventilators, or even the possibility of death for those who are elderly or those who have comorbidities would naturally be prevented. So it is very important for us to know that whether those who have received vaccines, how are they faring in terms of their exposure to infection and what is happening following infection. And now we cannot just talk about the older circulating strains. We are talking about the new variants, for example, the double mutants. So this particular experiment has shown very clearly that those who received the vaccines, Covaxin I'm talking about, sera was isolated from the blood which was collected from them. And that sera was used for seeing, could it prevent the viral culture that was being maintained of the double mutants in the laboratory? And lo and behold, we saw that happening. That's why I think it's a very good news that not only Covaxin has been working against the old circulating strain, but also the double mutant, which is of concern now. Everybody is discussing that. So if it starts spreading like a forest fire, or even for the UK variants, we have found that the sera collected from those who have received Covaxin, their sera was working very well in terms of neutralizing the viral variants. And so that's why it's a very good news.
Right. And what about the South African variant? Has this been tested even against the South African variant? And what is the news from there?
That work is ongoing, and the moment we come out or any convincing laboratory data is encountered, we'll certainly come out in open to share this information with the public. But as yet, we have done the work with the UK variants, and there is an indication about the double mutant, and there are other two variants as well, as you know, South African variants and the Brazilian variants. So all those work are ongoing, and it's a very good news. And Covaxin had this advantage of being a whole inactivated virus platform, which was used for developing this vaccine. So there was a potential of wide array of presentation of the antigen, and our immune system was therefore able to produce antibodies which were in a way multitasking with the multitasking capability, if you like it.
Right, Dr. Panda, how large was this data? How large was the sample? Because, and I'll tell you why. Because there's always been concern about the availability of the transparency of the data when it comes to testing the Covaxin, and that debate has been on for a lot of months now. And just a few moments after your tweet on another media channel, the MD of Bharat Biotech, the manufacturers of Covaxin, was there, stating very clearly that he hasn't received any data yet. So, should we construe this as a communication gap, or should we assume that all the testing and all the research and the studies are happening at ICMR's end? So, take us through this journey of arriving at this conclusion that the Covaxin is indeed working against the double mutant.
Absolutely. So Bharat Biotech and ICMR has been partnering in the process of developing the vaccines, and that actually involved culturing the virus, because you do need the viral culture, and then one goes through the process of sequencing in order to characterize, and then a fixed amount of viral particles containing soup is transferred for the next steps in terms of vaccine development. We are in regular touch with Bharat Biotech, and in fact, even before the tweet, there was this discussion going on with Professor Dr. Balaram Bhargav, DG ICMR, and myself. And on the other side of the phone, there was the official. So I think it's just a time gap, but there is no communication gap. Clearly, we are in touch, and the articles which clearly talk about the phase 1 clinical trial with Covaxin and phase 2 clinical trial. Those data are out in the public domain, which was published in the international peer-reviewed journals of repute, and it has been co-authored by people from Bharat Biotech and also scientists from ICMR. And this particular UK variant neutralization, with the help of serum, which was collected from Covaxin recipients, that is out in the International Journal of Travel Medicine. And there again, it's a collaborative partnership and authorship through which these information have been brought out in the public. So I would say that it was a very interesting journey in terms of partnership, where not only the vaccine was developed, but the preclinical studies, which involved the small animal studies, and then large animal studies like rhesus monkeys, followed by clinical trials. All of these were very fruitful and enjoyable.
Right, Dr. Panda. Also, Dr. Panda, I wanted to get your opinion on the fact that Oxford is conducting this study and this research of mixing two vaccines together. So, is that a possibility from the world of science coming from you? It'll give us some solace. That does it make sense for somebody to take one shot of a particular vaccine and a second shot of another? Or in yet another situation, perhaps once your vaccination dosage of both the shots is complete, the booster shot could be of another manufacturer, this way giving you some immunity against all possible strains.
Well, that's an interesting idea, but as yet we do not have enough evidence to say that the first dose of one vaccine, which uses a platform. So basically, it's about different platforms, development platforms, which have been used. For example, Covaxin, as I said, is about the whole virion-killed virus. So it is an inactivated virus, whereas Covishield uses a vector in which part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus is used for generating immune response following administration. So and then there are again mRNA platforms. So the platforms are different. So one really need to see that whether the combination, like the first dose of one vaccine, which used a completely different platform, can be mixed with the second dose of another. That's one. And your second question was about, okay, if we complete our vaccination schedule with one particular vaccine, the first and the second dose of the same vaccine, let's say Covaxin, and then in order to have a booster in case the immunity comes down, because we really don't know how long will be the immune memory, because any vaccine which gets developed actually focuses on three things. One is safety. The second is about immunogenicity and efficacy. And the third is about immune memory. About immune memory, we do not have our own, none, and not only India would have much data, because the disease is new and the vaccines which are being administered under the public health program is also of very short duration. So one really be able to figure out whether the immunity, and immunity, when you talk about the immunity, again, there are two arms of the immunity. One is humoral or antibody-mediated immunity, and the other one is cell-mediated immunity. So how long these arms of the immunity will remain functioning, or would we require a booster dose after 6 months, 9 months, or a year or so? That we don't know. But for flu, we know that you need annual shots of flu vaccine because the viruses go through the changes which are called drift. However, that is a matter of time. We really don't know how long the immune memory would sustain. But then again, if the antibody concentration, the neutralizing antibody concentration comes down, which has been the case in UK healthcare workers and even in India, the cell-mediated immunity could be persisting for quite some time. So they do not necessarily go hand in hand, like both antibody-mediated immunity as well as cell-mediated immunity come down. So one needs to think through. So all these are very important questions, and the answers to them would require some time to come out and tell us what should be our vaccination schedules in terms of the booster of the same vaccine or the booster from a different vaccine.
Right. So that was a lot of science and a lot of jargon that honestly went over my head, Doctor. I'll not get you to simplify it for me. I'll read up more about it. But what you're suggesting is that you are not ruling out the possibility that for somebody who's completed the 2 doses of a particular vaccine, there could be a possibility that the booster, whenever at whatever stage it is required, could be another brand as well. But you're not saying that that will happen, but you're not ruling it out as yet. Am I right in understanding that?
Absolutely, you got it.
Right, super.
Got it right.
Right. Before I come to my next question, there's also an audience question flashing on your screen right now, and this is from Nupur Praveen. And Nupur is asking that Covishield has an efficacy of 82.4, Sputnik has an efficacy of 91.6, Pfizer has a 95% efficacy, and all of them are higher than the Covaxin. So, how can it still be the most effective vaccine? Is a question.
Okay, so we are using the two terms here. One is efficacy and another is effectiveness. So effectiveness is about the achievement of a vaccine while it is out there in the real life setting. And efficacy is a term which we use when the vaccines are taken through the phases of clinical trials. And all these percentages are about the population level protection that one achieves through the administration of the vaccine while compared against a placebo, and what happens in the clinical trial setting. Effectiveness is about the real life setting, and one need to generate that kind of data in program milieu. So I would say that at the individual level, one should go ahead and take a vaccine because these percentages are about the population level. In terms of the discussion that we are having, which vaccine would be effective against the new mutants that we get to hear about, will they escape the immunity produced by the vaccines? That's called immune escape. So from that perspective, I was saying that Covaxin, being a vaccine developed through a platform that used the whole killed virion, so all the antigenic components of the virus are present in the vaccine, and when you are injecting it, so the immunity of our body or the system, they are sort of presented with all different kinds of antigens which are there. So the spectrum of immunity which will be developed would be quite broad spectrum, immune response. So from that perspective, that's what we had a hunch about or guess about. And now through the laboratory experiments, we are seeing that Covaxin is really able to mount, neutralizing antibody response against not only the old circulating strain, but also the UK variants and the double mutants, etc.
Right. So another question and a pertinent question there, and that's also coming from our audiences. And in fact, this is my colleague Priyanka asking this question, that apart from Covaxin, are there other Indian vaccines also that you're analyzing? And not just Indian, I'd like to add that are we also testing the Sputnik against, which has now been approved for emergency use in India? Are we testing that also against the double mutant, or are we restricting our study only to Covaxin?
Well, that's a very good question. And in fact, we do keep a track and we are in constant dialogue. For example, I'll tell you the Covishield, which is known as, AstraZeneca vaccine in UK, but it's the same vaccine here. So what we did in India, we conducted a bridging study, as we call it, because the large population was, not large number of people were recruited in the clinical trial, phase 1, 2, and 3. 3, of course, always recruits the largest number. So all those studies already happened in Brazil and USA and UK. So we did not repeat that in India for Covishield. Covishield is the name for AstraZeneca. What is AstraZeneca?
That's right.
Covishield
Sure.
in India. So in order to see whether Covishield is able to produce the immunity in Indian population, in order to see that, we had a study which is called bridging study. And that bridging study actually showed that Covishield was able to have immunogenicity in very good form. So that was something, the data that we generated. So it's not only about Covaxin, it's about Covishield. We also kept a track of the study which happened in UK, which clearly showed that Covishield was able to have the neutralization ability in terms of the UK variant. So as that has already been tested, we did not repeat that. However, as the variants of concern keep coming, we will be open to this idea of working through international collaboration and in examining the newer vaccines which are going to be administered in India, how effective they would remain against the newly emerging variants of concern. Yes, we are very much in conversation with our partners.
Sure. So how long before we see some results? Because now, as you know, and the whole country is waiting with bated breath for 1st of May when vaccination opens for all adults. So it's going to be pertinent for every citizen of the country to know which vaccine to be gone for, which vaccine should he or she opt for. So how long before data comes in on other vaccines?
That's a very good question, Kartik. But I would say, yes, India is going great. And whenever the call for vaccination comes to anybody, he or she should go. And in terms of opting, I would say that they don't differ much in terms of the individual level protection and the ability. So we have the largest availability would be of Covishield because of the production capability. And Covaxin has also ramped up its production capability. And Sputnik is going to be the new entrant. And so naturally, it will take a little bit of time. So we should not really wait, because the longer time we wait for choosing, in the process, we might put ourselves at risk. Because if our COVID-appropriate behavior slackens, then through that window, the virus will take the opportunity of infecting us. So I would say the moment we get an opportunity to take a vaccine, because any vaccine that comes in the market, in the program, they are safe, absolutely safe, because that's phase 1. And they are also immunogenic, because that's how they crossed phase 2. And then there is efficacy data. And now the new Drug Controller General of India has clearly said that any approved vaccine, which was approved by US FDA or EUA, because of the scientific rigor that they follow, which is on par with the scientific rigor that is followed in India, we would also accept their results, and we will be open to the idea of using those vaccines, because the scientific data which were examined by them, that will also be examined by the DCGI, but that will not prevent us from using them. So this is a quick approval process, which is a very good thing.
Sure. I get that, Dr. Panda. But again, the lingering question still stays that if the double mutant is the one which is infectious and which is taking the whole country in its grip right now, and I know for a fact now coming from ICMR that the Covaxin guards me against it, isn't Covaxin going to then become my default choice, even in the absence of this data or this efficacy or effectiveness, as you call it, coming on account of the other vaccines available in the market? So why would anybody go for any other vaccine today is my question.
I will take half a minute here, if you allow me, Kartik, to explain what is the difference between the variant of interest and the variant of concern. The variant of interest is something which is mutations happening in the variant. And then if they are happening in a place like spike protein or other places to which the virus attaches with a host cell and then enters, that's called variant of interest. But any variant of interest is not considered as variant of concern. Variant of concern is the term used for a particular mutant or a variant having one mutations or multiple mutations. That particular variant will be called a variant of concern when there is an epidemiological evidence and clinical evidence that the virus would spread or is spreading very rapidly through the population groups, or the variant is causing serious clinical illness. Honestly speaking, scientifically speaking, the double mutant has been identified in various regions of India and also in other countries. And from the structural studies, it is being assumed that maybe it will have the potential of spreading fast. But now we know for the UK variant for sure. That's why the variant of concern, this particular term, now is being used for UK variant, South African variant, and Brazilian variant. These are variant of concern because there are epidemiological evidence and clinical evidence to say that they have either the potential of spreading fast. So that's a public health concern. It will infect many people rapidly, but not necessarily all the variants which spread rapidly also turn out to be fatal or lethal. So the double mutant, as yet in India, has not been termed as variant of concern. So it is still a variant of interest. So I would say that although it's a good news, the Covaxin is the recipients and the serum collected from them has been found to neutralize the double mutant. I would say that don't get terribly inclined towards having only Covaxin. So I'm saying as a public health professional, go get your vaccines, whatever is available, because that will do good, not only to you and your family members, but also to the society at large.
Right. So don't stick to Covaxin. Go ahead, take any vaccine which is approved and is available, but take the vaccine, do not delay it. I think that is what is the message coming very, very clearly from Dr. Panda. Dr. Panda, since you're talking about mutations, there's one more question which is coming in, and this is from Harsh Chauhan on your screen right now. And he's asking, and this is again something pertinent, what is the triple mutation strain? So, I mean, we knew the variants that existed named after countries, and then we saw the double mutation, and now we are looking at a triple mutation variant also. So, what is this triple mutation strain, and is Covaxin now going to be against this as well, effective against this as well?
I don't know, first of all, the answer to the last question that you posed, but okay. As we are talking about mutation, let's try to understand what happens. When the viruses proliferate and proliferate rapidly, there are some changes that occur. It's an error because it's rapidly proliferating. So one amino acid gets replaced by another. Maybe at times the part of the gene doesn't get copied well, and there is no if there is no robust proofreading system, the errors remain. And so the progeny virus is actually a virus which is not exactly looking like its parent. So it has some errors incorporated. Now, all these errors are called mutations. And when the changes are little, we call them drift. If the change is big, we call them shift. Now, it could even be, it could even happen that a large part of the gene gets deleted. Now, all the mutations do not necessarily impart a survival advantage to the virus. So they could be deleterious for the virus as well. So the mutations are changes that are expected to happen. They do occur during the proliferation, and also under the immunological pressure, there are changes. So when, in addition, on the top of the known 16 or 17 mutations, we found 2 more mutations happening. They are happening in a place where the attachment or the entry of the virus to the host cell could be impacted, or they would acquire structurally, I'm saying, through the structural analysis, they might acquire an ability to evade the detection system, the diagnostic detection system, or they might evade the immune response. So those make them variant of concern. About the triple mutant, we don't know as yet. So there will be conjectures, of course, but laboratory experiments and population-based experiments would let us know for sure how is this variant going to behave.
Right. And sticking to the theme of triple mutant, I think that is definitely a variant of concern when it comes to public right now. Might not be so in the scientific community, but there's another question, and this is coming from Harinder. And Harinder wants to understand what is ADE, antibody dependent enhancement, and does it pose a risk with a double or triple mutant?
That's a very good question. Antibody-dependent enhancement is something which was discussed also not only in relation to SARS-CoV-2, actually long ago when there was an attempt to produce a vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus, which causes respiratory infections in children. Then, following vaccination, when the vaccinated child acquired infection, there was an enhanced respiratory disease happening, and that's due to the antibody which was already present, and that facilitated the antigen-antibody complex formation and all the cell-mediated immune responses, which caused problem in terms of eosinophils coming in. So that's in brief what happens. Now, this was again not specific to only respiratory syncytial virus, but in dengue infection also we have seen this phenomena. However, again, the smart move that Covaxin did, the manufacturers did, Bharat, I must say, the adjuvant which has been used is actually mounting a cell-mediated immune response, which bypasses or reduces or does not allow this antibody-dependent enhancement to happen, because the cell-mediated immune response is such that it won't allow. So that is in brief. When I get a vaccine, I have antibodies produced, following which, if we get infected, then antigen complex gets formed, and that creates a disease or sickness or illness, which is called antibody-dependent enhancement disease phenomena. But here again, Covaxin came up with a good news. There is a Lancet write-up even, where the director of, if I'm not wrong, director of CDC China praised the smart move in terms of the adjuvant which has been used, which actually took care of this phenomena so that it does not happen and we remain all right.
Right. And before I let you go, Dr. Panda, I want to ask you one slightly more fundamentally basic question, and this is regarding the RT-PCR tests. So right now, there are reports that one has read that last time you mentioned that the virus has not changed its strategy, but I think the virus seems to have changed its hiding place for sure. And the hiding place now seems to be the lungs, due to which the RT-PCR test is giving false negatives. Is that true?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I will really try to highlight this whole aspect. Now there's a countrywide network for cataloging and knowing and keeping track of the mutations that are happening, and all the mutations that we are talking about, including the UK variant, Brazil variant, or South African variant, and also the double mutant and now the triple mutant. All these mutations were identified after a sample, a clinical specimens, which is a nasopharyngeal swab and or oropharyngeal swab, got tested with RT-PCR. It got tested as positive, and then the mutations were identified by doing sequencing. So clearly, the positivity, like from the person from whom the samples were collected, those samples were tested with RT-PCR, and they turned out to be positive. And among part of those positive samples were used to sequence the viral genome in order to figure out whether the mutants were there. So if the mutants would have escaped, they would not be, detected. They would not have been detected right at the first place. So I clearly want to mention that all the mutants that are there, don't get panicked. They would be captured by RT-PCR test. Particularly, why I tell you, the advisory that is being used by India clearly says that the RT-PCR test kits should not aim for detecting only one gene of the virus. It has to be 2 or more gene of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and so we do not expect much escape happening due to the mutants, that they won't be captured by the RT-PCR tests which are being used in India. And finally, I would say that for any diagnostic test, there is never 100% sensitivity. And this is not happening only in the second wave, even in the first wave. Forget about SARS-CoV-2 infection. For any diagnostic test, 100 infected individuals would not be detected as positive by the diagnostic test kit that you would use. Maybe 90, 95 people would get detected, but the rest 5 will be falsely detected as negative. So that's called false negative. Although they are infected, they won't be captured by the test. That's known. So when we say 95% sensitivity of a test result, that means out of 100 infected individuals, 95 will be detected as positive, but 5 won't be. But don't worry, when you are having symptoms, go ahead and consult your physician, but don't self-diagnose yourself as infected. Neither get panicked. Always consult the doctor. But right now, we should not think that the RT-PCR test algorithms that we are using in the country and the test kits that are being used, they are going to be, evaded or eluded by the new mutants. No, we are fine.
Right. So 95% stays true even with the double mutant. That is what you're saying, doctor. And just because of the large number of cases and the mammoth number of testing that is happening in the country, that the cases or that are emerging with false negatives are also numerically a little higher.
Yeah, that might be, but then I will say that double mutants, triple mutants, or other mutants that we talked about, they are still spreading through the same route of infection. So there is no alternative to the prevention tools, and particularly proper use of face mask. I'm talking about face mask, not chin mask or neck mask. I want to take advantage of this program to say that usage of face mask requires closing the nose and the mouth. And if we close them...
And I think that seems to be the most difficult concept for people to fathom for some strange reason.
Exactly. So a face mask needs to be used along with the hand hygiene and the physical distance, maintaining physical distance during social interactions and avoiding mass gathering. These 4 are still very effective. So I would say that, look, I mean, we are fighting a battle here. And when we fight someone with a sword, we do not, lower down our armor, because if we lower down our shield, then the other guy with whom I am fighting would hit me with his sword, isn't it? So the vaccine is our sword, but at the same time, we should maintain our armor shield as well up and properly used. So the face mask, be it, triple mutant, and even if there is a quadruple mutant, we know that the viruses during proliferation will mutate, will change, they will be recognized. However, they do get prevented by the time-tested, proven prevention strategies.
Right. And last time also, Dr. Panda, when we had interacted, you had mentioned very, very clearly that the vaccine is not changing its strategy of transmission. However, the Lancet report did have a lot of us confused when it said that the virus is also airborne. While we knew beforehand that the virus was airborne, this study somehow seemed to suggest that it is also spreading in larger areas and may not specifically be from close contact only. So is there any merit in reading that study a little in too much detail, or should we just stick to the old prevention tools that we've been using, like you just mentioned?
I really appreciate, Kartik, you raising this question. Yes, there has been a study, and this particular study, what it is saying needs to be understood properly. When we say airborne, it's not an isolated virus particle which is flowing with the air. No. So the size of the water droplets, when they are 5 micron or larger, those larger water droplets, they cannot travel long and they get dropped on the ground, or even before getting dropped, if it comes on somebody from the infected individual. So those water droplets will have the cells in them, and the cells will have the virus in it. And those water droplets will get prevented from entering another susceptible person who is there in the close proximity if that person is using mask. But now the newer evidence, the collation of evidence, science always evolves. And so if the water droplet is of smaller size, they will not get dropped quickly, but they will remain floating in the air. But still it's a water droplet having, a little infected cell in it. However, in a room, if somebody talked or coughed or sneezed and then left the room, but those small water droplets are sort of floating in the air. And if you enter that room and there is nobody, so you think that I need not to wear a mask or anything, that will be a wrong thing to do. So what I would say, the old time-tested prevention strategies need to be fine-tuned, in the sense, don't give up on them, maintain them, but not only in outdoors, but also in indoor setting. So when we are with our family members, we do not know who is infected but asymptomatic. So there could be, people who are infected and asymptomatic, and while they are talking, sneezing, or coughing, there could be smaller water droplets, and they will be floating in the air for long. So if we want to protect or prevent ourselves, it's good not to use air conditioner or air conditioning system that you have. You keep your windows open, so there is a cross ventilation. That will be very helpful. And even, I would say, that family is the smartest family, where all the members are using masks, not only while they are going out or at outdoors, but also while they are spending time in the family. That is the smart family. So I'm still.
Is there any one such smart family that you've come across in the country, Dr. Panda?
So I'm trying to start this message from your program, and let's try do that, and that will be doing havoc in terms of public health achievement.
Great. Thank you so much for giving us so much time, Dr. Panda. But before I let you go, I just have one final question. And again, a basic question which is lingering in the air, pretty much like the particles that you spoke about. And this question is about the fact that when are vaccinations actually going to get approved for children? Where are we on that research and that study? Because vaccinating the population, which is 18 plus, of course, is a great feat in itself. But the risk doesn't reduce for children, with so many cases of children getting infected with COVID-19 right now.
You're right. I am aware of these approvals. For any clinical trial, you need the approval from the DCGI and CDSCO in India. Every country has its own regulatory approval. So while that is in progress, I will certainly come back to you whenever there is an evidence. But I would say that if the adults take care of themselves through vaccination and through COVID-appropriate behaviors, and if the children are also encouraged to maintain COVID-appropriate behavior, it's still possible, because it's not mass vaccination that will be required, but smart vaccination. And that's exactly what we are doing, gradually expanding the population groups, which will be brought under the folds of vaccination. And so, yes, children are getting infected because the more they go out, and there are opening of educational institutes for tuition or for attending colleges or schools, and so from that perspective, I think that it's our collective responsibility to not only go and get ourselves vaccinated, but also inculcate the COVID-appropriate behavior, where children should also be engaged in the discourses, and behavior change. And that has to follow the innovative behavior change communication. It cannot be like a dry, exam question or an enforcement.
Right, Dr. Panda, thank you so much for joining us today on Money9, and a lot of insights coming from you. As always, pleasure having you with us here. So two messages coming up very, very clearly from Dr. Panda. Number one, come 1st May, go ahead, get vaccinated. Even prior to 1st May, actually, those who are eligible right now must go ahead and get vaccinated. And number two, keep the mask up, and let it not be a neck mask or a chin mask, but indeed a face mask. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.